Do not open your eyes until morning, or else I will kick you in the nuts. Squaw in the nuts. Yes, ma'am.
It's April 5th, 2000, and South Park Season 4 premieres with an episode called The Tooth Fairy's Tats 2000, with the word Tats in the title, likely being a reference to Cartman's brand new catchphrase throughout this episode.
I have an idea that is totally tits. Oh man, this is so tits! Oh dude, that is tits! I mean, that is big fat Oprah tits right there!
This episode has three things going for it. It has a mob parody to start, an existential philosophy lesson in the middle, and an overarching go for the boys to get the greatest game system of all time, the Sega Dreamcast. Now, a bit of quick trivia before we go any further. This is actually technically the last episode of South Park, all the way up until Broadway Brodown in 2011, to have more than one credited writer. The writing credit here goes to Trey Parker, Matt Stone, and Nancy M. Pimentel. After this, Parker essentially would become the sole credited writer on every episode for over a decade. While Stone does do a lot of the overall heavy lifting with the conceptualization and the plots, it would be Parker who would actually script them. Now, before we crack this episode open, there are three quick pieces of context that matter. 1. The title. This is the first of 4 Season 4 episodes, with a 2000 in the name. According to Parker, it was added because of the turn of the millennium. Absolutely everything had 2000 slapped on it. Products, TV shows, action figures, heck, even Harry Potter got in on it. 2. The Sega Dreamcast. Released in the US in September 1999, roughly 7 months before this episode would air, the Dreamcast was Sega's last home console, and at the time, was genuinely exciting. With no concrete release of the PlayStation 2 yet, there was a clear gap. It launched with Sonic Adventures, it had online capabilities, and it only cost $199.99. And the boys, they desperately wanted one. And 3 is Timmy, who is his own entire side story in and of himself. But more on that when we get there. The episode starts with Cartman arriving at the bus stop, absolutely buzzing with excitement. The Tooth Fairy visited him, and she left $2. And Cartman, being the mastermind that he is, has already done the math. His plan? Pull all their teeth together, leave them under his pillow, and collect all the money. The Tooth Fairy doesn't check the serial numbers. Nobody does. It's free money. And speaking of serial numbers, if you check right here, both of these $1 bills have the exact same serial number. Either Leanne is operating a counterfeit operation, or one of her customers is screwing her in all the wrong ways. There's a problem though. Stan and Kyle both have already lost all their baby teeth. They're out of inventory. Kenny, however, he still has some. So Cartman devises a method of extraction. He ties the string around Kenny's tooth, and the other end goes on a very familiar looking wheelchair. And here's our first appearance of Timmy Birch, a character that for a time looked as though he was going to be written in a way to make fun of his situation, but is instead introduced as just another regular member of the kids' classroom. Now, initially, Comedy Central was not thrilled about Timmy. The network was worried about the optics of a non-verbal disabled character, specifically, the bad publicity of having a kid in a wheelchair be used primarily for physical comedy. Parker and Stone, however, pushed back. Their argument was that treating Timmy like a normal kid, and as part of a group, someone in the universe that is treated exactly the same as everybody else, was in itself a moral statement. And Comedy Central relented, and Timmy would go on to become one of the most popular characters in the show's history, getting his own titular episode in the episode Timmy 2000. So Timmy guns his wheelchair. However, the only thing to pop out of Kenny may not have been a tooth, but it still had a full-size head attached.
You guys, I can see Kenny's little pingling.
And this is actually our first on-screen appearance in the TV show of Kenny without his hoodie. He would premiere before this episode in the bigger, longer, and uncut movie, but we had not seen him yet in the full animated series until this point. And Cartman's next source of teeth turns out to be Butters, who has a tooth that he's been saving for a real tooth fairy. Cartman decides to dress up as a tooth fairy. Wings, wand, the whole costume, and sneaks into Butters' room, steals his tooth, and puts it under his own pillow. This is actually our first time seeing Cartman and Butters interact on a one-on-one basis in the series. Their entire future relationship, which is initially Cartman manipulating Butters, and Butters being completely trusting and repeatedly devastated by this, is established in this one scene. Butters being unknowingly happy, while Cartman exploits him, is a dynamic that we will see a lot of over the next 20 plus years. And so the scheme goes off without a hitch. The boys are collecting teeth, leaving them underneath Cartman's pillow, and raking in the dollars.
Oh gosh, I didn't think he'd be so fat.
Until Cartman's mother notices that her son has allegedly lost over 112 teeth, including 15 in a single night, and decides to call the dentist.
As soon as I get back, I'll look into it.
Oh, thank you. Freebie next week.
What?
And side note, the money they made off turning in these teeth would be more than enough for the boys to pull together and buy a Sega Dreamcast. If they weren't so selfish and wanted one individually, they could have actually got exactly what they wanted without their downfall. So Leanne, broken and unable to afford groceries for the next month, makes a decision. She sits Cartman down and tells him the truth. There is no Tooth Fairy. She's been leaving the money all herself this entire time. And while Cartman is initially devastated by this news, he sees an opportunity. He takes this news to the boys, and they devise their plan. Stan, Kenny, and Cartman bounce back almost instantly. Okay, the Tooth Fairy is fake, but let's start this new angle. Kyle, however, he does not bounce back. Kyle starts reading René Descartes, the 17th century French philosopher, whose most famous work begins with a systemically doubting of everything he had previously believed was real, until he can only arrive at one concrete solution. I think, therefore I am. And this only causes things to worsen. If the Tooth Fairy isn't real, what else isn't real? Santa? The Easter Bunny? Moses? What is the basis of reality? How can he know that anything's real? In fact, how can he know that he's real?
Oh my god, you did lie to me! What about Moses and Abraham?
Well, they were probably real.
Probably? Is Atlantis real?
Probably not.
Look at me, Dad! I don't even know what's real anymore!
And this is played completely sincerely. The show doesn't mock Kyle for going there. It lets him go there, because the logic is actually sound. If a foundational belief that he has held since childhood turns out to be a comforting lie constructed by the adults around him, why would he trust any belief that was built on top of that foundation? In fact, why should he trust anything? This is such a real thought process for an elementary school boy. Meanwhile, Stan has a plan. Stan's insight? You don't actually need to use your own parents. You just need to get the teeth, go over to the rich neighborhood, and put them under a rich kid's pillow, and collect all the money while they sleep. It's perfect. So, what's the issue? Well, they immediately run into a group of boys doing the exact same thing, down to the dress and tiara and everything. But the other groups, they're professionals, efficient, organized. They even have a leader, one the boys will meet very soon. This is Luigi, and he runs the tooth racketing empire out of the back of an Italian restaurant, Luigi's Ristorante. And he's voiced by Richard Belzer, who is best known at the time for playing Detective John Munch on Law & Order SVU. And this makes him one of the most notable guest stars from the earlier seasons. However, at some point during the production, he became unavailable. The show needed a line redone at 4 in the morning, which is a perfectly normal time to be recording South Park episodes. So Trey Parker did the voice himself. If you watch closely near the end, Luigi's sounds slightly different. That's Parker actually covering the scheduling conflict at 4 in the morning.
My associates here tell me you were working Cherry Creek tonight. Is that true?
Jesus, the little sick kid was a setup all along. How could I be so stupid?
Luigi explains the operation. His family's been running it for 2 generations. Both of his older brothers ran it before him. And now it's his route. He has territory, he has employees, and he's been doing this longer than the boys think. Because during his long explanation of how the business works, we actually get a flashback montage to the whole operation. And guess what? Timmy's in it. During the flashback montage, Timmy can briefly be seen dressed as the Tooth Fairy, suspended from a string, still in his wheelchair. This means that Timmy was part of the tooth trade before the boys even were. He was already in the network, and it raises so many questions in this episode that nobody bothers to ask. Like, how long has Timmy been moonlighting as a criminal fairy? And how can these kids even lift him in his full wheelchair? And for eagle-eyed viewers, you may notice that this corpse here, the one that they're using to take teeth from, actually resembles Kyle's grandmother from just a few episodes prior. Luigi gives the boys a choice. They can join his operation at 2% of the profits, or they can have their penises cut off. Now, while this may be a tough decision, Cartman and the boys eventually relent.
It's that, or else I can cut off your penis.
Work for you. Have my penis cut off. Work for you. Have my penis cut off. Cartman!
Time cuts forward, and the boys are more than excited to show off all their wealth in front of Chef. claiming that they can all afford double desserts today. Unfortunately for the boys, Chef immediately clocks the signs of drug dealing, leading to a hilarious song from Chef when he was a kid about how he wanted to bang his girlfriend's mom with his big weenie in about 10 years.
And my weenie is big and strong. Cause when it does, I'm gonna buzz and make love to your man all night long. I'm gonna make love to your man in about 10 years. What?
Now, Cartman naturally gets greedy. 2% just isn't enough. He wants the whole operation. And he starts pulling the boys away from Loogie's network to run their own independent routes. Obviously, Loogie finds out, and his response is exactly what you'd expect from a villain in South Park. He kidnaps Kenny. Loogie's thugs tie concrete weights to Kenny's feet and throw him off the bridge into the Plate River. A classic mob cement shoe execution. The Plate River, however, is only about 10 inches deep at this location, so the execution fails. Kenny is deposited into shallow water with his feet encased in concrete and is slowly sinking. But he's able to hop towards the shore. And geographically speaking, this is actually technically true, as the Plate River is very notorious for how shallow it is, often being quoted as a mile wide and an inch deep. Also, when Loogie tells Cartman he's got his pal, Cartman immediately says, "Kenny isn't afraid of you." Loogie never said it was Kenny. He never specified, but Cartman just knew. And a possible example of this is Cartman having meta-awareness of Kenny's role in the universe. Knowing that if someone has kidnapped and has nearly killed one of the friends, logically speaking, it has to be Kenny. And this isn't the only time that Cartman has made this connection. In later seasons, he would comment,
"There's also the lawsuit of the little boy who died in your park. The family's entitled to the rest of this."
What, Kenny? He dies all the time!
showing that he's one of the few characters that has actually been aware of all his deaths since the very beginning. And meanwhile, two parallel stories are developing. The boys hatch a plan to steal money from a sick kid on the news, a child named Billy Cirklovich, who needs $600 for a bone marrow transplant and has recently lost a tooth. And they use this opportunity for the tooth fairy to leave him the $600 he needs for his operation. But all of this is a trap. And elsewhere, Kyle, somewhere between dental crime and philosophy, has entirely ceased to exist. But let's take a quick detour to the American Dental Association. The ADA has been notified that the teeth are going missing across South Park. Money is disappearing from children's room. Something is happening, and it's so obvious to everybody that it's almost immediately evident. A giant half-chicken, half-squirrel creature that steals either teeth or money from sleeping children in order to build some sort of giant nest for its genetically superior and potentially dangerous offspring, and that this creature has, quote, at least a mild understanding of algebra.
A giant half-chicken, half-squirrel that steals either teeth or money from children as they sleep in order to build some kind of giant nest for its genetically superior and potentially dangerous offspring. We believe also that this creature would have at least a mild understanding of algebra.
Or some crackpot theory from Dr. Foley that there's a black market tooth racket being run by children. I mean, how likely is that? So of course, the ADA laughs at Dr. Foley. He is clearly insane, and everyone returns to the chicken squirrel hypothesis. Dr. Foley adds, though, that he's seen this happen before, in Montreal. The other dentists laugh even harder. They point out that Montreal is a fictional place. I guess Sheila must have taken it out during the war. But Dr. Foley decides to prove his theory on his own. He sets up a sting operation, fabricating a news report about a child named Billy Cirklovich. And this is how we get to the scene from previously. Foley's plan is to catch whoever comes to steal the tooth and prove that the black market exists. The honey part is set, and the bees are about to start buzzing. But here's the twist. Billy Cirklovich actually does seem to need the leukemia treatment. He actually does need the money, and the sting operation was built around a real sick kid who genuinely needed that $600. When the money gets left, and then chaotically not stolen at the end, Billy actually finds it under his bed, and at the end of the episode, presumably gets the treatment after taking it to his parents. So, incidentally, this trap accidentally helped a real child. Now, obviously, the sting goes sideways in a very strange way. Cartman, Stan, and Kyle show up to steal the money. Luke and his crew show up to confront the kids. The ADA and the police already have the house surrounded though. And everyone converges at once, but suddenly, Kyle, who has been fading in and out of existence throughout his entire act, questioning whether anything is real, well, Kyle blinks out of existence entirely. Kyle returns from his non-existence as an all-powerful entity, capable of bending reality to its will. He briefly manifests as a half-chicken, half-squirrel. He then scatters the dentist and clears the police. He resolves the standoff all by himself. Afterward, he delivers the speech.
You see, the basis of all reasoning is the mind's awareness of itself. What we think, the external objects we perceive, are all like actors that come on and off stage. But our consciousness, the stage itself, is always present to us.
The basis of all reasoning is the mind's awareness of itself. What we think, the external objects we perceive, are all like actors that come on and off stage. But our consciousness, the stage itself, is always present to us. And that's Cal Broflovsky, age 9, having just become God for a brief moment. And this is South Park doing something genuinely strange and fully committing to it. Cal's existential crisis, which started as a fake tooth fairy, resolves into a direct statement of Cartesian philosophy. You know, I think, therefore I am. The one thing you can't doubt is your own consciousness, because doubting requires a consciousness to do the doubting. Honestly, this whole scene just gives me Vietnam flashbacks to my introduction to philosophy in college. But Kyle, after briefly becoming a pan-dimensional deity, finally understands this. And fun fact, his transformation sequence is actually a direct parody of the closing segment of the 2001 A Space Odyssey. Specifically, the Child Star sequence, where astronaut Dave Bowman transcends human form and becomes something beyond comprehension. This mirrors very closely the form that Kyle takes in this episode. The music during this transformation is also a medley of 2 tracks from the Primus 1993 album, Pork Soda, the title track, and Welcome to This World. And for those of you who don't know, Primus is Matt and Stone's favorite band, and is actually how they met in college, by bonding over their shared love of the group, which is why Primus is the one who sings their opening theme song. Now with Kyle's return to his normal human dimension, the chaos clears. Loogie, who despite his criminal empire collapsing around him, is mostly unupset by the situation, being more upset with himself for falling for an obvious trap. He then decides that, it's all fine, actually. The fall of the Tooth Fairy Empire is a very good thing for him. He would like to try out for flag football anyway. And I appreciate that at the end of the day, they do take the time to acknowledge that, while being masterminds and criminal entrepreneurs, these are all still just children, and like to be treated like it. And then, the credits roll. The episode's over. But wait, just a moment, what's this? We cut to our favorite hooded boy, Kenny, and he has somehow survived this entire episode. Timmy couldn't take him out with a wheelchair, the Mafia couldn't drown him with the concrete shoes, and all he has to do to survive is hop away to safety. And he drowns. Somehow falling into the only hole, one that is only barely deep enough just to cover his nose. Luckily though, we don't end on a sad note, as we get a very special line from a very special boy. Kenny! This episode is, like many of the South Park episodes, a complete roller coaster. We have an episode about the children's mafia, Kenny surviving mostly to the end, a brand new iconic character, and a philosophical subplot that tackles 17th century existential philosophy. And so that's the end of the episode. If you've made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. It genuinely means the world to me that people like you would enjoy something I have to say about South Park. And if you feel so inclined, please leave a comment down below, even if it's criticism. I read every comment and would love to reply to all of them. And if you want to watch future episodes, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps a lot and it'll help you see the episodes as soon as they air. So until next time, ciao.